Welcome to Underworld UK, where Britain's darkest stories are brought to light. From the gritty streets of gangland London, Liverpool, Manchester and Birmingham, from Curtis Warren to the Cray twins to county lines and modern day true crime, we cover everything. Bringing you new videos every week. Subscribe so that you'll be notified when the next video is put out.
Welcome back to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Let's jump straight in. In the shadows of Britain's underworld, one man orchestrated one of the biggest gun-running and drug trafficking plots the UK has ever seen. His name was Omar Malik, a kingpin, a criminal mastermind, and the man at the head of a gang that law enforcement would later describe as operating at the very highest levels ever encountered in this country. Malik, who will also be subjected to a serious crime prevention order for 5 years after he is released, used the alias Pay Ya Bills on EncroChat to direct operations at the top of the gang. Others in the gang included Adrian Gonzalez, who played a pivotal role controlling a stash house in Ancoats and brokering deals between other gangs. Connor Sandlin used the handle Stella Boat and was responsible for the stash house and the currying of drugs, cash and firearms. This was not street-level dealing. This was organised crime on a terrifying industrial scale. The gang sourced and distributed weapons rarely seen in the UK. There is evidence to suggest that the Skorpion submachine guns were being offered for sale for between approximately £9,000 and £15,000 each. These quantities of fully automatic firearms with compatible ammunition would put this operation, to my knowledge, among the very highest level of criminal firearm trafficking ever encountered by law enforcement in this country. They imported 52 Skorpion machine guns, and by May 2020, at least 48 had been sold, fetching as much as £15,000 each. A firearms expert later testified that this level of trafficking placed Malik's network among the most dangerous operations ever uncovered in Britain. The money poured in. The gang flaunted their wealth through designer clothes, flashy cars, luxury watches and high-end jewellery. They thought they were untouchable. And for a while, they were. Like many high-level criminals, they relied on encrypted EncroChat phones. On those devices, Malik used the alias Pay Ya Bills, giving orders, moving drugs and directing the flow of weapons. Other members had their own handles. Adrian Gonzalez, Terry fucking Tibbs. Connor Sandlin, Stella Boat. Daniel Gibbons, Humble Waffle. Daniel Waters, Obscure Twig. Andrew Cooney, Fern Pirate. Sean Organ, Dull Hyena. Each man played a role. Couriers, stash house controllers, brokers and recruiters, all working under Malik's command. But what they didn't know was that EncroChat wasn't as secure as they believed. Operation Venetic, a joint effort between Greater Manchester Police and the National Crime Agency, had infiltrated the system. Every message, every deal, every desperate attempt to cover their tracks was already in the hands of investigators. In April 2020, the first cracks began to show. Police intercepted a vehicle in West Yorkshire, recovering a handgun, ammunition and bundles of cash. That same evening, gang member Connor Sandlin was arrested. Panic rippled through the group. Adrian Gonzalez scrambled to warn Malik, texting, "Ted's been arrested for firearms." Ted was Sandlin's nickname. In another message, Gonzalez nervously wrote, "Switching this off, bro. They might come here." But it was already too late. The police could see everything. Surveillance tracked the gang as they scrambled to empty their stash house at Ancoats Marina, a base stocked with Class A and B drugs, firearms, and hundreds of thousands in cash. In June, Malik's Manchester city centre flat was raided. Police discovered a mobile phone shoved down a cushion, jewellery, drugs, and boxes of cash. Days later, two more members, Daniel Gibbons and Daniel Waters, were caught red-handed after carrying bags stuffed with cocaine, amphetamines, guns, and over £500,000 in cash into a Reddish address. At Gonzalez's luxury flat, police found a hidden, encrypted phone under artificial grass on a roof terrace. At Sean Organ's home, they uncovered a taser, cash, and 1/4 kilo of cocaine hidden in his Porsche. At Cooney's Cheshire property, investigators seized luxury watches, paperwork for an Italian villa, and more cocaine stashed in the boot of yet another Porsche. The only defendant to take the stand was Cooney, who categorically denied being linked to the encrypted phone handle and being involved in the conspiracy, despite cell site analysis placing him and the encrypted phone in similar areas at similar times. Cooney maintained it was just bad luck, a string of unlucky coincidences. When questioned who Fern Pirate could be, he claimed it may be a stranger he often gave lifts to who required taxi services to visit a vulnerable family member. No one was able to corroborate this selfless act or find this unknown man. Speaking in court, the firearms expert in the case said, "The evidence I have considered in this case leads to my opinion that the organised crime group acquired 52 Skorpion machine pistols in more than one batch and, again, having kept a small number for their own use, by May 2020 had sold at least 48 of these machine pistols to various criminal associates." This was the empire Malik had built, and now it was collapsing around him. In December 2023, following a 6-week trial at Minshult Crown Court, Malik and his men faced justice. The scale of the conspiracy was laid bare before the jury. The sentences were severe. Omar Malik, 38 years. Connor Sandlin, 30.5 years. Daniel Gibbons, 28 years. Andrew Cooney, 27 years. Daniel Waters, 26.5 years. Adrian Gonzalez, 25 years. Sean Organ, 24 years. Almost 200 years of prison time, handed down in total. Even behind bars, Malik's criminal earnings were staggering. At a proceeds of crime hearing in 2024, prosecutors revealed he had benefited by more than £52 million, but the assets available to seize were a fraction of that, just £274,000, including jewellery, watches and cash. If he fails to pay, Malik faces an extra 2.5 years in prison. Detectives who investigated the case said Malik and his men were very dangerous men who only cared about making vast amounts of money. Detective Superintendent Joe Arup, head of serious organised crime at GMP, said these were very dangerous men who only cared about making vast amounts of money. They didn't care how lethal their commodities were and the consequences for the communities and innocent people who would be irrevocably affected by this. They thought they were untouchable, but working with colleagues from the NCA and the CPS Northwest Complex Case Unit, we were able to systematically dismantle the group and show them this wasn't the case. NCA Operations Manager Adrian Barnard said these men belonged to a dangerous network of criminals involved in the transfer of firearms and supply of drugs in the Northwest and across the UK. They trafficked in weapons capable of mass destruction with no thought for the devastation they could cause in British communities. They believed they were untouchable. But Operation Venetic proved otherwise. And for Omar Malik, the so-called £52 million kingpin, the empire he built on drugs, guns and greed ended in ruin.